chance in hell that this is funny or gonna work. And when you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes with no audience, Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Fallon. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. So a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. They stand there, and there's applause signs. And then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to clock. They're like, okay, explain to the people. Yeah. Okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right.
Jimmy Kimmel's a loser. I do Jimmy Kimmel. I did him a lot.
Yeah.
And he'd be standing on the sidewalk. Oh, sir, may I bring you in? He'd bring me in. Every time. The whole show is talking bad about Trump.
He called us doofuses when we had you on.
He's a group of doofuses in flat-brimmed hats.
Guess what? We
ask him how many.
What he did.
Ask him. Yeah, you do bigger. Yeah. Do. His show's done.
A Hollywood late-night gesture meets the double-barreled roasting of Joe Rogan and President Donald Trump. And suddenly, the smug smirk turns into a desperate grin, trying to survive the heat. Rogan brings the unfiltered MMA-style takedown while Trump swings in with his trademark unapologetic political uppercuts, turning Jimmy Kimmel into a human punching bag for the ages. No mercy, no safety net, just two very different wrecking balls smashing through his ego, his career, and every pretentious joke he's ever thought was clever. This isn't banter. It's a full-on comedic demolition.
Do you think the hate Trump business model that's been in the entertainment business is going out of business with the American people?
Well, it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked really for a long time, and I would say pretty much from the beginning. Colbert has no talent. I mean, I could take anybody here, I could go outside in the beautiful streets and pick up a couple of people that do just as well or better. They get higher ratings than he did. He's got no talent. Fallon has no talent. Kimmel has no talent. They're next. They're going to be going. I hear they're going to be going. I don't know, but I would imagine because they'd get, Colbert has better ratings than Kimmel or Fallon. You know that.
Donald Trump tag-teamed Joe Rogan to demolish Jimmy Kimmel in a fine style. He set the stage on fire, grabbed the mic, and turned the poor late-night host into a human marshmallow roasting over a bonfire of political incompetence and comedic mediocrity. The current president didn't even need to work hard. He simply pointed out that Kimmel's career trajectory resembles a stock market crash graph from 2008. Once the darling of late-night TV, Kimmel now clings to ratings the way a raccoon clings to a trash can lid, desperately hoping there's still something inside. Trump painted a picture so vivid of Kimmel's shrinking audience that you could almost see the empty seats in his studio forming a support group.
Because the guy was so polarizing.
Boy, wouldn't it be fun to put Donald Trump in that hot seat, see how much that genius really knows?
Right? And because he was such an easy guy to turn into a Nazi.
What would you say to him if you could get this thing?
I would say, please, have a seat. You know what? Any time you spend on a game show is another hour you're not being president.
If you pointed to him, you're like, God, the way he talks, he's going to ruin the world.
Can't tackle Donald Trump. He is the most important, the smartest, the most capable leader in the world, and he's not going to let someone push him around.
It's a threat to democracy. We could do anything we can to stop him. So what do? They stop all the primaries.
Trump, as has now been well established, is the greatest negotiator, the greatest deal maker, the greatest diplomat, and the greatest peacemaker that we have ever seen in this country.
They don't have real primaries anymore. They haven't had a real primary since 2012.
I do believe that it will be Donald Trump and Elon Musk who were reflected as two of the saviors of this country and really of the entire world.
They're rigged.
Trump wasn't just going after Kimmel's jokes or lack thereof. He went for the man's entire brand. He highlighted how Kimmel spends more time trying to be a moral philosopher than an entertainer, delivering monologues with the energy of a substitute teacher who's just realized the class is going to eat him alive. It wasn't enough that Kimmel's ratings are sinking faster than a cement block in a swimming pool. Trump pointed out that the man's entire act now revolves around pretending he's relevant by bashing people infinitely more interesting than him.
At least with late night television, nobody anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model and you're not adapting.
Yeah. The creativity's gone for late night comedy, right? Like that's not really a thing anymore.
You got Jimmy Fallon doing a song about different variants.
And just when Kimmel thought he could duck behind his Hollywood smugness, Trump dropped the hammer by tying Kimmel's self-righteous act to the broader collapse of late-night TV as a whole. He painted Kimmel as a relic from an era when audiences had no choice but to watch whatever was on. Now, in a world of streaming and endless entertainment, Kimmel is a dusty VHS tape nobody asked for, sitting in the clearance bin next to workout videos from the 90s. By the time Trump was done, Kimmel wasn't just roasted, he was charbroiled, deep-fried, and served with a side of irrelevance.
Remember the Academy Awards, I said how he's the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards, and this stupid guy goes up, and just before the Best Picture of the Year, the show is almost over. They're waiting for the Best Picture of the Year. He gets up and he says, and his wife said, please don't do it. Please, darling, don't go out. His manager said, don't do it. I have to do it. He goes out and reads my truth to the entire audience right before the best prime time, the Best Picture. And it said basically, he is the worst host of the history. He reads the whole thing. And then I think he said something like, ha, 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 he thinks he bothers me or some crap like that. I said, he's one of the dumbest human beings ever. He should have listened to his wife. What a...
Remember in the Academy Awards, I said how he's the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards. And this stupid guy goes up and just before the Best Picture of the Year, the show is almost over. They're waiting for the Best Picture of the Year. He gets up and he says, and his wife said, please don't do it. Please, darling, don't go out. His manager said, don't do it, I have to do it. He goes out and reads my truth to the entire audience right before the best prime time, the Best Picture. And it said basically, he is the worst host in the history. He reads the whole thing. And then I think he said something like, ha ha, he thinks he bothers me. Or some crap like that. I said, he's one of the dumbest human beings ever. He should have listened to his wife. What a joke. Then Joe Rogan stepped up and Kimmel's night went from bad to catastrophic. Rogan didn't even warm up. He went straight for the jugular, treating Kimmel's career like an old abandoned punching bag in the corner of a gym. He started with Kimmel's manufactured Hollywood authenticity, pointing out how a guy who once dressed in blackface on national TV now struts around like the patron saint of moral clarity. Rogan, with surgical precision, dismantled that hypocrisy by comparing Kimmel's virtue signaling to a used car salesman bragging about the free air freshener in a totaled vehicle.
I just got a review, and has there ever been a worse host than Jimmy Kimmel at the Oscars? His opening was that of a less than average person trying too hard to be something which he is not and never can be. Get rid of Kimmel and perhaps replace him with another washed up but cheap ABC talent. See if you can guess which former...
Rogan's roast was relentless because he didn't just stop at Kimmel's politics. He shredded his comedy skills. He pointed out how Kimmel's monologues feel like they were written by a committee of interns using outdated Twitter memes delivered with the same half-hearted enthusiasm of someone trying to explain cryptocurrency to their grandma. Rogan painted the image of Kimmel standing there night after night, desperately trying to land jokes, while his audience offers the kind of polite pity laughter people use when a toddler tells a knock-knock joke. It wasn't cruel. Rogan compared Kimmel to a podcast episode you skip over because it's 2 hours of someone ranting without making a single interesting point. He dissected Kimmel's belief that moralizing from a studio in Los Angeles somehow makes him a thought leader, pointing out that the man's greatest contribution to society is still the mean tweet segment. And even that's been milked so dry it's basically powdered.
Yeah, it's a good joke. Funny thing to say. He's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood. And, and I think also, he famously, there's some videos of him in blackface, and those came out, and he had apologized for them, and I think he took that hit and, really...
Rogan didn't let the personal hypocrisy slide either. He reminded everyone that Kimmel, for all his grandstanding about truth and justice, has made a career cozying up to the very elites he now pretends to criticize. Rogan skewered the idea that Kimmel is anti-establishment when his entire paycheck depends on keeping the Hollywood machine running smoothly. It was like watching someone brag about being vegan while secretly running a barbecue joint on weekends. Rogan wasn't just mocking him. He was peeling back the glossy PR layer to reveal the hollow, predictable product underneath. The beauty of Rogan's roast was that it wasn't just about Jimmy Kimmel, the man. It was about what Kimmel represents. The dying breed of late-night hosts who mistake their platform for a pulpit, who think delivering a snarky monologue is the same as changing the world. Kimmel had been intellectually gutted and professionally flattened. Trump had already burned down the house, and Rogan showed up to salt the earth. The combination was devastating because it hit from both angles. Trump skewering Kimmel's relevance and brand. Rogan obliterating his comedy and credibility.
Well, also, I don't think that conversation is a conversation that should be held in front of an audience in 5-minute chunks, like they do on television.
Yeah.
That's a conversation that you have to let air out. I want to know why you think the way you think. Him, sit down with Jimmy. Why do you think the way you think? Why would you think that it's okay to say that it's a real simple thing? The people that have been vaccinated, you treat them. And the people that took horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy. Really? Is that really how you feel? Like people that are sick from a disease that was funded by our own tax dollars? That's how you feel like? Those people should just die because they don't trust the government or they don't trust the pharmaceutical industrial complex that's been responsible for lying so many times.
It was a masterclass in roast dynamics. Two completely different styles. One shared conclusion. Kimmel's career, as it stands, is little more than a monument to wasted potential and overestimated talent. And perhaps the cruelest part, both roasts exposed how little Kimmel has to fall back on once you strip away the pretense. Without his network, without the manufactured applause, without the comfort of a friendly crowd, he's just another out-of-touch celebrity shouting into the void. It's whether anyone will even notice if he disappears entirely. Joe Rogan wasted no time tearing into Jimmy Kimmel with the kind of blunt force commentary that felt like a heavyweight fight between facts and ego. An ego lost before the bell even rang. Rogan painted Kimmel as the prime example of what happens when a comedian trades in his punchlines for political virtue signaling only to end up sounding like a late-night infomercial for whatever narrative Hollywood is peddling that week. His setup was ruthless. Here's a man who once thrived on edgy humor, now reduced to acting like the hall monitor for acceptable opinions, scolding anyone who dares to step outside the ideological sandbox. It's like watching a lion voluntarily trade his roar for a kazoo and then wondering why no one takes him seriously.
President Trump trading barbs with late-night host Jimmy Kimmel after Stephen Colbert's cancellation. Trump posting to Truth Social the following: the word is, and it's a strong word at that, Jimmy Kimmel is next to go in the untalented late-night sweepstakes. These are people with absolutely no talent who were paid millions of dollars for, in all cases, destroying what used to be great television. It's really good to see them go.
Rogan went after Kimmel's bizarre transformation from entertainer to sanctimonious preacher, pointing out how he's managed to turn the fun of late-night TV into something about as exciting as waiting in line at the DMV. Instead of being a source of laughs, Kimmel has become a predictable moral authority who dishes out lectures under the guise of comedy. Only his audience isn't laughing with him. They're politely clapping like they've just sat through a mandatory HR meeting. Rogan didn't just call him unfunny. He made the case that Kimmel has essentially taken comedy hostage and is holding it for ransom, with the payment being applause from the Twitter crowd. Then Rogan went in for the kill. Kimmel just fills the gap with smug smirks and self-congratulation like that's going to distract from the fact that nobody's actually laughing. Rogan laid it out plainly. Kimmel's not a comedian anymore. He's a brand ambassador for the status quo, and the only thing he's selling is watered-down satire for people who think retweets are a sense of humor.
The very thing that they use to control the media in terms of the news, they use it to control the media in terms of late-night talk shows and monologues as well. It's the same influence, because they're the same sponsors. The same people are spending the same money on the same networks. And it has an impact. If it affects your livelihood and affects your future and your ability to do this thing that you love doing, which is hosting a talk show, and you're doing it on a network that is paid for by that money, guess what? That affects
Donald Trump, current president of the United States, followed with his own brand of destruction. Loud, unapologetic, and with all the subtlety of a wrecking ball through a glass factory. Where Rogan was precise and surgical, Trump came in like a political sledgehammer, blasting Kimmel for being the poster boy of Hollywood hypocrisy. He wasted no time painting Kimmel as a two-faced opportunist who tailors his outrage based on whatever is trending, delivering monologues that sound less like comedy and more like campaign ads for whichever political side he's sucking up to at the moment. Trump called him out as the quintessential late-night lightweight, the guy who talks tough behind a desk, but wouldn't last a second in an actual debate without cards and a laugh track. Trump shredded Kimmel's desperate pandering to left-wing politics, describing him as someone who's so terrified of offending his own audience that he's willing to become a predictable parody of himself. According to Trump, Kimmel's show has turned into an echo chamber so airtight it could probably be used as a vacuum seal for frozen meat. Every joke is just a safe, recycled jab at Republicans or a clumsy love letter to whatever liberal talking point is making the rounds that week. And while Kimmel keeps pretending he's this edgy truth teller, Trump made it clear he's just a lapdog for the same crowd that controls the narrative in Hollywood, wagging his tail every time they toss him a bone.
When you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes, why are you doing this? There's not a chance in hell that this is funny.
You know, it's supposed to be comedy. It's hatred. I go on a show. Is that your real hair? I said, yeah. He said, do you mind if I mess it up? I said, I'd prefer no. So he grabs it and he starts really going crazy, right? And 6 months later, he went out because he was under pressure to apologize because he humanized Donald Trump. Do you remember? I'd like to apologize. I messed up Donald Trump's hair and it humanized him and he became president. He's one of the dumbest human beings ever.
They stand there and there's applause signs. And then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to clap. They're like, okay, explaining to the people.
Wow.
They'll train the audience how to do it, depending upon the set. And like, we'll be right back. Yay! And everybody claps. Is everybody really clapping that you're going to be right back to them?
The president then turned his attention to Kimmel's infamous habit of taking teary-eyed detours into moral lectures, especially on topics he clearly hasn't thought through past the headline. Trump mocked him for thinking that crying on camera somehow makes you a credible political commentator, likening it to an actor in a bad soap opera who thinks overacting equals authenticity. And while Kimmel might think these moments are moving and brave, Trump saw them as nothing more than emotional grandstanding, calculated attempts to turn sentimentality into ratings gold. Only problem is the audience is starting to catch on and the ratings are doing the opposite of climbing. Rogan jumped back into the roasting session by dismantling the idea that Kimmel's political commentary has any real impact. He compared Kimmel's influence on national discourse to that of a motivational poster in a dentist's office. Mildly noticeable but completely forgettable the moment you leave the room.
You know, they want to shut me down on being on McAfee. They want to shut me up from...
Well, that was the Kimmel thing, right?
Well, no.
Did you ever talk to that dude? Have you ever talked to him?
I've been on the show years ago, yeah.
Would you ever have a conversation with him in person?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, they wanted me to be on the show in the summertime after I got traded.
Really?
There had, obviously been some things that he had said about me that made me go, I don't know if I want to do that. I'd rather, maybe have a side conversation.
Rogan pointed out that real comedy challenges power, but Kimmel only challenges the powers that his bosses already dislike. It's the comedic equivalent of fighting the air. Lots of movement, zero resistance, and no actual danger. Rogan also took aim at the hollow nature of Kimmel's brand of activism, which seems to begin and end with snarky monologues and scripted outrage. No actual solutions, no deeper thought, just well-rehearsed indignation spoon-fed to an audience that's been conditioned to applaud every time the punchline lands on the same predictable political target. Rogan framed it as the opposite of bravery, comedy that seeks the safest laugh possible while dressing itself up as rebellious. Trump called it a reinvention so fake it could be bottled and sold as Hollywood perfume. All packaging, no substance. The combined assault from Rogan and Trump was brutal in its efficiency. Rogan dismantled Kimmel's comedic credibility piece by piece, showing that he's become more of a political spokesperson than an entertainer. Between Rogan's surgical strikes and Trump's heavy artillery, Kimmel's late-night empire looked less like a towering fortress of relevance and more like a sand castle bracing for high tide.